Shalom, shalom. Give all praise Yahweh Shem Yeshua Bashim Merkakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles for the edification and knowledge. And to water Yahweh Shem Yeshua for putting the spirit of the elders and apostles so we can edify regarding this truth and knowledge. Knowing this truth and knowledge. Call holy Yahweh Shem Yeshua Bashim Merkakadash. Give all praise Yahweh Bashim Yeshua Bashim Merkakadash. It's going to be a video. You're not going to be able to see it because it's too bright out here. But I'm going to turn it up so you can hear it. It's global news talking about with Russia. Global newspaper.
As Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues, significant developments are taking place. Volyn Oblast District Governor has given an important statement. The governor said the cruise missile that hit the oil depot in the city of Lutsk has launched from Belarus onto Ukrainian territory. Putin continues to shed blood in Ukraine. Northwestern Ukraine, which has so far been little targeted, has been attacked. Volyn regional governor claimed that the missile came from Belarus. The governor announced an attack with cruise missiles from Belarus to the Volyn region. The missile attack took place from Belarusian territory. Air defense systems and radars failed to notice as the cruise missiles traveled at low altitudes. Rescue teams are continuing their work at the site of the missile attack. No reports of casualties has been yet released. On the evening of the attack, Lutsk Mayor Igor Polishuk issued a written statement. He said their city was hit by a Russian missile strike which hit some oil refineries.
Article here, NPR, which is National Press Review. It's March. Why is Belarus so involved in Russia's invasion? So I'm going to read a little bit of this article. As the U.S. and its European allies move to cinch Russia off from the global trade and international funds over its ongoing invasion of Ukraine, one country has landed alongside in its western crosshairs, Belarus. Landlocked country of the 9 million people, borders the northern Ukraine and serves as a staging ground for Russian troops in the months preceding the invasion. It has also hosted diplomatic talks between the Russian and Ukraine. On Wednesday, the European Union announced it would ban Belarusian banks from the SWIFT global financial messaging system and freeze ties with Belarus. Central bank added to sanctions levied last week from effectively blocking billions of euros worth of annual exports to the EU. And the United States announced its own sanctions last week to limit imports and target Belarusian military officials as it criticized Belarus for enabling Putin's invasion of Ukraine. You have stabbed your neighbors in the back. You are a co-aggressor. Your territory has been used as a launchpad for a vicious barbaric attack on your neighboring state. And you bear the responsibility for that. Michael Carpenter, a U.S. diplomat, said this week at the meeting of the Organization for the Security and Cooperations in Europe. How does Belarus fit into the Russian invasion of Ukraine? Belarus has been a part of the Soviet Union and became an independent country in 1991 after the USSR collapsed. Since then, it has maintained close economical political ties with Russia. So pretty much both sides' interests, but country borders 3 NATO member states that were once communist states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. While those countries and others that were part of the Soviet bloc have joined Western alliances, NATO and EU, Belarus has remained tightly under Moscow's influence. So they really close partners, man. Strategically, Belarus is important to the Russian military efforts. It shares nearly 700 miles of border with Ukraine. Kyiv is closer to Belarus than it is to Russia. Because when you look on the map, Belarus would be north, pretty much right on top of Ukraine, man. Pretty much top center, man. On the left hand side, which would be the west, would be Latvia, Lithuania. Then you got Poland, of course, on the west coast. Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania. That'll be south of Belarus. Romania, Moldova, Ukraine will be south of Belarus. Then Russia on the east coast side. And you got these other cities, Chernihiv, Kharkiv, Lviv, Kyiv, Lviv, and these other ones. Moscow on the top on the east coast side, on the top part on the east of Belarus. Okay, where was that? Okay, strategically, Belarus is important to the Russian military efforts. It shares nearly 700 miles of border with Ukraine and Kyiv, and closer to Belarus than it is to Russia. Over the winter, more than 30,000 Russian troops gathered in Belarus under the guise of a joint training exercise. Russia had claimed those forces would return home after the exercise in late February. Instead, they invaded Ukraine on February 24th. Since then, the Russian forces coming from Belarus have approached the capital along the west side of the Dnieper River and attacked on Chernihiv, a smaller city of Kyiv, northeast. And some injured Russian soldiers have been evacuated to hospitals in Belarus. The Wall Street Journal reported Russian missiles have been launched from Belarus, Pentagon said. Why is Belarus aiding the Russian invasion? In short, Russia has helped Belarus, specifically its authoritarian leader, Alexander Lukashenko, and now Russian President Vladimir Putin has called in the favor. For decades, Lukashenko had played Belarus as a neutral state, shifting his overtures from Russia to the Western nations and back as his needs suited, man. Quid pro quo, favor for a favor. But a key turning point in 2020 and Lukashenko declared victory in the controversially disputed presidential election. Lukashenko claimed that a landslide victory, 80% of Lukashenko versus 10% of the popular opponent, Slovenia, Dishan Kiashka, forgive me my pronunciation, Shlaki on the pronunciation, was instantly disputed by the opposition and by the U.S. and the allies in New York. In Belarus, protests erupted on an unprecedented scale. They lasted for weeks with the security forces arresting thousands, but still failing to suppress the huge numbers of demonstrators in capital Minsk. Facing the biggest popular challenge in the 26 years, Lukashenko turned into Putin for help. And Putin delivered, announcing that Russia's military stood ready to intervene if necessary. And emboldened Lukashenko emboldened Lukashenko embarked on a vicious crackdown with mass arrests and torture of detainees, government jail political opponents, journalists, shut down rights organizations, criminalized displays of what you would call extremism. And more than 37 were detained in the year May 2021, according to the new report by the United States, and the rest and detentions accompanied by unlawful use of force, caused serious bodily injuries and harm, followed by torture, ill treatment, including sexual assault, were on a large scale and had been an effect of exerting pressure on the population to stifle dissent and public displays of opposition to the incumbent president. The report states Lukashenko actions came at a cost, saying Tatiana Kulkievich, the political scientist at the University of South Florida, who originally is from Belarus. The door was closed towards the west, and he had only one option, Russia. Kulkievich said he needs support, he needs money, and Putin provide that to him. So a little bit more I'm going to read. This relates to how has the West responded, and its NATO allies. And the U.S. and the United Kingdom and the EU have all announced sanctions against Belarus over the past 2 weeks, nearly as severe as those placed on Russia itself. And it's important to note that Belarus was already under major sanctions enacted by Lukashenko's 2020 crackdown on pro-democracy protesters last year. More than the sanctions came after the diversion of Ryanair flight to Minsk to arrest anti-Lukashenko journalists and a stranded Middle Eastern migrants on Belarus border with Poland. As a result, diplomatic ties between Belarus and U.S. have been strained. Belarusian government denied a visa to the U.S. Embassy. Julie Fisher in 2020 ordered the crackdown of the U.S. Embassy staff in Minsk. In 2021, Belarus did not currently have an ambassador in Washington. Russian officials were wary of making deals with Lukashenko, whose commitment had proved unreliable in the past, such as when the EU welcomed seemingly liberalizing Belarus into the Union democracy-focused the Eastern Partnership in 2009, only to watch in 2010 Lukashenko ordered the rest of the political opponents and the violent dispersal of tens and thousands of protesters. And I think that it's incredibly important to recognize the patterns of Lukashenko has built over decades. Question of whether or not it's possible to make an arrangement to try to resolve a discrete issue, whether it can be trusted to live up to any such agreement, said Fisher in an interview with NPR, which is National Press Review, last November. What is next for Belarus? While Lukashenko said that the Belarusian forces will not take part in the conflict, Belarus has little power to influence Russia's Ukraine war. Russian troops are still present in Belarus. Opinion polls in Belarus is limited by the recent studies of foreign thinking tanks have found growing discontent with the Lukashenko regime and ambivalence among the Belarusians about their country's deepening relationship with Russia. But there is nothing that everyday Belarusians can do to change Lukashenko's dependence on Russia. More broadly, Putin's decision to invade Ukraine shows a determination to bolster Moscow's sphere of influence, and Belarus is a part of that, experts say. Putin wants Ukraine because it is part of the version of the Russian Empire. He wants Belarus to be part of that empire. Daniel Freed, a former assistant secretary of state of Europe, told NPR last month. Putin has written and spoken extensively about his beliefs that Ukrainians and Russians are one people, and they are. So, they Russian. and that Ukraine is not a legitimate nation separate from Russia. In those comments, he often included Belarus too. Kolyevich points out, when we hear that Ukraine is in the sphere of influence, then he wants it to be Belarus is as well. He cannot let it go. Kolyevich says they also don't have a right to exist, essentially, according to Putin. It's a very unfortunate situation because the Belarusian people cannot do nothing. That's a dictator, man. It's the power of a dictator, man. So it's about control, it's about dominance, man. That was an article relating to why Belarus is so involved in the Russian invasion. This is March 11, 2022. A couple weeks ago. What was that? Today, about a week ago. A couple days ago. A few days ago. Read some information. Let me see. Does Belarus have an alliance with Russia? Russia is Belarus's largest and most important economical political partner. Both are members of the various international organizations, including the Commonwealth of Independent States, Eurasia Customs Union, and the Collective Security Treaty Organizations and United Nations. So they have a very close partnership and interest to one another. All right, this is just an article talking about that. So all these go to all these nations gathering, together. It was talking about they were doing drills in Kuril Island, which is like Japan area, Russia too, and you got a lot of things happening. Go to quick Matthew's scripture. Matthew's 24:6. Go to that real quick. Matthew 24:6, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. So you're going to hear wars and rumors of wars, man. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So these things are a part of prophecy, man. These things have to come to pass, man. Hearing of wars, hearing about wars, and hearing about rumors of wars, and also seeing these countries also doing mock exercises, mock drills, simulations, building up, showing their military prowess or their sovereignty or their hegemony, which is the sovereignty or power. So they showing, displaying their weaponry. You know what I mean? The exercising, the joint connections with these other nations to do these exercises. So these men are relating to Joel, talking about they preparing for battle, man. So they preparing for war, man. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. So you see these nations rise against one another, these kingdoms against kingdoms, man. Tensions between Israel, Iran, Syria, China, U.S. relating to with Taiwan, China with Taiwan, of course Russia, Ukraine, the NATO and the Western allies, what they call the unfriendly nations. To these tensions all over the world, man. All these nations, man. So there's things going on all over sectors, all over the world. Japan is worried about relating to their the ones near the neighboring countries, North Korea, China, and North Korea and China, and another one. What's the other one? Let me see if I can get it real quick. Shalaki. Yeah, neighboring countries. So China's worried about, Japan is worried about that. China, North Korea, South Korea, the Philippines, Russia, the Marine Islands, Republic of China, Taiwan. You know what I mean? So all these countries, man. You know, so all these countries you're seeing doing, you know, they're preparing for what we know as World War III, man. We are in the stages of World War III. Only difference is the nuclear missiles haven't been shot. These are the imminent incremental precursors to build up for World War III, man. You know, a lot of these nations are going to participate, or participants relating to Ezekiel 38. They're gonna join band together with certain nations, man. Like Turkey, Iran, they key players, man. The African nations. Related to state in Ezekiel, man. So these nations are preparing because they preparing for what is inevitable, man. They relating to Revelations 9:12, relating to Revelations 11 and 14. 11 and 14 talk about the second woe is past and the third woe come quickly, man. So that's what's to come, man. They're building up for these things. That being said, I hope this helps. This brother Zayab in some way. Give all praise, Yahweh Bashem, Yosha Bashem, Rakagada Shalom. Thanks.